Hey, James Gurney here. Well, we're riding out this coronavirus pandemic at home like everybody else. My son Frank is here with his girlfriend Amelia. They're working at home too, but in their spare time, they've converted our library into a sewing room, or as they call it, the sweatshop, in order to make protective masks for all the healthcare workers out there who are on the front lines and need help. These are good masks, and they'll show you how they made theirs. And just before that, I'll show you the little painting I did of Amelia at work at the sewing center. So away we go. I'll start the sketch with pencil drawing on watercolor paper, and then for watercolors I've got Prussian blue, titanium white, raw sienna, sepia, and transparent red oxide. I start by bringing in some cool colors underneath the light that's on the sewing machine. The work area has this cool light around it. The rest of the room is relatively warm, so I'll mix up some raw sienna and cover the whole surface of the rest of the picture with this fairly warm light. Now some sepia to draw her dark shirt and drop in some darks for her hair. Background. There's some National Geographics on the shelf behind, and those are fairly dark yellow because they're not brightly lit. Now defining the left-hand edge of the sewing machine, and you see that cool light underneath the machine. Now, her hands are moving a lot as she cuts, measures, and sews each one of these things and gets the machine going. So I'm going to have to decide which hand pose I want. Maybe I'll have her cutting. So I watch closely and try to pick a moment to do for the hands. Okay, now I'm painting in the hands. The scissors are going to be in her right hand. So let's put the scissors handle around her thumb. And then there's that cutting mat underneath the sewing machine with some guidelines. Those help define the perspective of the table. And I think she's made a couple masks in the time that I painted her doing it. Let me hand off to my wife Jeanette, who is sketching from the other side of the room.
Hi, I was really enjoying the atmosphere in the room of quiet concentration and a clutter of creative tools everywhere. And I wanted to do Amelia absorbed in her task, and her hands were so graceful and she was just concentrating, and I wanted to show the simple shape of the sewing machine and the pile of every possible thing on our library table.
So now's really the time to start making a fabric face mask if you have a sewing machine and some extra materials lying around the house. This is my first real sewing project. Good to keep in mind that this is beginner friendly. So what I'm using here is a cotton flannel from a fitted bed sheet for my inside layer. So I'm using this template. You can print these out really easily. You fold the fabric in half and then you cut it out, and then you'll have the two sides. On the outside layer is just a cotton fabric from a t-shirt. So the first thing that you're going to sew is that inside seam. You have to keep in mind it'll all be flipped inside out. I know for me that I have some difficulty presenting something that isn't perfect. You really got to push past that in the case of these masks. They're not going to look perfect. They just need to be functional. Fold over a little bit on the sides of the inside layer. So you want the seam to be on the two outsides. And then you're just going to go around that edge so it keeps a consistent line. If you add that wire, it'll get you a much snugger fit. If you don't have modeling wire, you can use twist ties or pipe cleaner. And then what I use is the bottom seam of a t-shirt. Just be very careful. You cannot run the wire under the sewing machine. So once I have it in that little packet, I'll just sew across that top part of the seam. Now's the really fun part where you see it start to look like a real mask when you turn it inside out. We're going to use the elastic part of the fitted bed sheet. I'm measuring this to 6.5 inches. So now I'm going to sew on these elastic parts. So if you flip your mask over, so lining sides faced up, you'll see that there's a little bit of extra fabric on either end. I flip it over the edge of the elastic. I have the elastic in there about 1/2 inch. So I do a couple stitches to get the elastic in, and then I sew across the top. Be really careful that you have that wire pinned and pushed towards the top so that you don't run over it. Really take your time on this one. This one is the more important stitch. You're gonna come up and you're gonna run over the other side with the elastic as well. It's almost done. You just got one more stitch at the bottom. And you can make this one of the more fun stitches. This one's a little more tricky because you have to turn the elastic over so you create that loop and you're good to go. Thank you for listening. There are some additional resources in the description. Please feel free to share if you have any good tips or stories to share, and stay well out there, everybody.
Okay, thanks for watching. You might want to check out my website or subscribe to my channel. And then here's a playlist with more good stuff and a video that continues the story. So check them out and share with your friends.